Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Ray. You are listening to a least worst of The Doctor Is In. We have no best of, but this is truly one of our least worst.
I need you to knock some sense into me. I'm sure you can.
Yeah, I don't know.
I enjoy listening to you. I don't always agree with everything.
All right. Enough of this persiflage.
So, you want my question?
I'm certainly not going to get myself in trouble by telling you what to do.
That makes great sense. Gosh, that's good.
Did I overwhelm you with words and wisdom?
I've got 7 kids. I feel like I could call you every day.
Wait, you're telling me I'm wrong? Disconnect.
Yes, I am, Dr. Ray.
You just need to tune in to Dr. Ray, honey. He's got all the answers.
Am I right or am I right?
Probably.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
I will bet you $32.75 that you can't guess how much I lost last night at nickel dime poker. I don't play well. I'll raise when I'm betting to pull to an inside straight. I know you're thinking, what's an inside straight? Those of you who play nickel dime poker, you know that. It's a tough draw. It's a tough draw. And you probably don't raise unless you're bluffing. Good to have you with me here on The Doctor Is In. I am not bluffing. I'm here. And I very much want to talk to you. The calls make the show. It's that simple. Well, I could talk for an hour. I can do that. It's not a problem. Rather talk to you. Rather find out what's going on in your situation, your life, your circumstances, the people around you. Sometimes these are just struggles of life, and other times they're internal struggles, they're emotions. There's no therapy going on here, and there's no diagnoses. And if you have a therapist, I'm certainly not going to comment. We're going to step into another therapist's turf. But we can educate, give some ideas, some options, some possibilities, speculate a little bit on what might happen if you do what you were going to do. 877-57-EQUAL is the number to call to get onto the program. 877-573-7825. Question, comment, particular situation, generic question. Doctor, you know what I've always wondered about in psychology? And then you ask. Maybe it's a diagnosis that someone in your family has been tagged with. You don't know what it means. All right, let's talk. 877-57-EQUAL. I was sitting in a meeting regarding an adolescent, and there was a mental health counselor type in there. Probably young, somewhat inexperienced, it appeared, just from her language, her comprehension of the situation, and her age. She was very young. At one point she said, "We all know that when a parent sets their standards too high, the children will rebel." I didn't say anything. I wanted to say, no, we don't all know that. And yes, that is a theoretical cliche that hasn't a whole lot of research back up. But I stifled my inner child. And, of course, I've heard this many places, many places. This is one of the mantras of so many experts. Don't set your standards too high. Your kids will rebel. They know they can't reach them. They'll get embittered and resentful, and they'll suffer. Their psychological well-being will struggle. My grandfather came from Italy. Raised my dad. My grandfather had a 6th grade education. If somebody would have said to him, "Angelo, you know, you don't set your standards too high for Nicky. He rebel." My 6th grade educated grandfather would have said, "That makes no sense." That's not how he would have said it. He would have said, "That makes no sense. You got to have a high standard. That's how you teach." I think the case could be made that if you are rigid in your standards, now let me define standards. I'm not talking swinging at the right pitches in Little League. I'm not talking about dribbling with your left hand in your 5th grade basketball game. That stuff, yes, parents can get carried away. They live through their kids. That's trouble. We're talking about standards like moral standards, living standards, expectations. Those are the ones that if you set them too high, then the kids are going to resist and get sneaky and deceptive because they just obviously are going to be frustrated trying to reach them. If there is love in the home, clear, warm affection, unconditional, you're my son, you're my daughter, and I will love you always, then the standard that you set is an ideal. Obviously, you're never going to get to the point where two siblings of the same age don't at least every so often mistreat each other. However, does that mean you shouldn't have a standard that says you can't mistreat each other? Zero tolerance, you're not allowed to mistreat each other. Now, that is as high as it gets. Are you going to say, well, all right, I don't want to be unreasonable, so here's what we'll do. Conan, you can kick your sister twice a week and yell at her 4 times a week. That's your allowance because I don't want to set my standard up too high. Or if you don't allow disrespect, say, for example, to their mom. Well, that's kind of a rigid standard, isn't it? Maybe they could scream at her once. No cuss words other than maybe once a month, because I don't want to have a no tolerance standard here. That's rigid. This makes no sense. Standards by definition are something to try to live up to. The love for the child, the affection for the child doesn't rise and fall depending upon how they meet the standard. The standard is a goal. It's an aim. This is really an undercutting of parents' confidence and authority for them to be told, you know, if you are a Catholic or a Christian and you have certain moral standards for your children and you wish to adhere to them and enforce them, it's going to blow up in your face. You know that, don't you? And, of course, the people who say this are given some kind of credibility as experts. So therefore the parent thinks, oh boy, I don't want my 14-year-old to have a smartphone. But that standard seems kind of high. So now what? I mean, is she going to hate me? Is she going to resent me? Is she going to get sneaky, deceptive? Maybe I should relax my standards. I had a personal example of this. We adopted the twins. They were 4. They had been in foster care where they were pretty much allowed to run semi-wild. When we first got the twins, we had, at that point, 4 children, and then the twins were 5 and 6. Clearly, they did many things that the other 4 didn't do, throwing temper tantrums, resisting, lying, etc. One night I said to my wife, honey, maybe we should just kind of relax our standards for John and Joanna because they're getting way more than their share of discipline because they're doing way more than their share of misbehavior. And my wife said, Ray, you big dummy. Okay, she didn't exactly say that, but I read the look. You know how you can read the look? In essence, she said, we can't do that, Ray. We have standards across the board for all the kids. Let's just make sure John and Joe get some heavy doses of affection and love. Well, discipline is love, so I shouldn't say that. Heavy doses of affection and warmth to counterbalance this. So that they don't think that they're the picked upon ones because they're the new kids to the family. She made a lot more sense than I did about that. It was a moment of self-doubt for me, is what it was. Standards are meant to be high. And the irony is, the kids who are raised in homes with high standards wrapped in a lot of love, are much more likely to live by those standards than to rebel against them. Okay, what do I want to do here? Projective testing. See, I had to take, was it a semester or a year of projective testing? Now, what is projective testing? The theory behind projective testing is predicated going way back to Sigmund Freud. Vel I hade lusa melindas drul. A projective test is a picture or an ink blot that you present to a person, and by their very nature, they're vague. They can be interpreted in a whole bunch of ways. The thematic apperception test is you're supposed to tell a story about that picture. And in telling that story, you reveal stuff about yourself. When you look at an ink blot, you say that that looks like a bear running through a football field, or whatever it looks like. You're supposed to be projecting your inner conflicts onto that stimulus, that picture, that ink blot. That's the theory behind it. What does the research show? Well, about the only way that it's useful is that it may give you interview material. For example, if I tell a story based upon a picture that you show me on this thematic apperception test, and I tell this story, well, it may be that in telling the story, I give you some insights or some information that you can ask me about it. So why did you happen to say that was your mom in the picture? Because that looks like it. You can't tell. Why would you say that's your mom? So that kind of thing. Now, you can do that. But for the most part, the idea that I'm going to project my inner conflicts, my buried repressions, all those things, onto that blot, not too many practitioners do that anymore. That was back in the early days of psychological testing, and that was the magic that psychologists were supposed to have. See, the psychiatrists were the MD dudes, and they could do the medication and that kind of stuff. But the psychologists, we had to have something that set us apart, and what that was our ability to do psychological testing, personality testing. Which, by the way, personality testing is, it's a fuzzy thing, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I've talked about it in the past, not the least of which is that personality characteristics are fuzzy things. Nevertheless, the whole idea that somebody's going to give you 10 ink blots and you're going to look at them and then the person's going to analyze them and then they're going to tell you all about yourself on the basis of how you responded to those ink blots can be pretty shaky. But that's the theory behind it. So I just wanted to give you a heads up.
I know you don't tell people what to do, and I think that's okay.
You're listening to The Doctor. Come in, pull up a couch, let's talk. The Doctor is in.
For over 40 years, Leader Business in Ann Arbor has delivered top-quality copiers, printers, scanners, and software solutions, all backed by expert service. Rooted in faith and integrity, they ensure your operations run smoothly with fast response times and proactive maintenance. Join the many Catholic-owned organizations that trust Leader Business. Visit leaderbusiness.com or call 734-253-2534. Leader Business. Equip, serve, support.
At Glass Doctor, our trained specialists are experts at fixing foggy and cracked glass, leaving any residential window looking like new without replacing the entire window. Bring back the view of any window with Glass Doctor. Visit glassdoctor.com to request a free estimate on repairing your foggy or cracked windows. Let Glass Doctor bring back your view.
Call the Glass Doctor, we'll fix your paint. Oh, yeah!
This program is brought to you by the following nonprofit underwriter.
Join Catholics at the Shore 2026, May 7th through the 9th at the beautiful Icona in Avalon, New Jersey. This year's theme, Needing Nothing More, invites you to step away from the noise and encounter Christ. Speakers include Patricia Heaton, UFC champion Bas Rutten, and pro-life activist Christian Hawkins, along with other powerful Catholic voices. To learn more, go to CatholicsAtTheShore.com.
Underwritten in part by the following nonprofit.
Do you feel as though life is flying past you? Are you desperate for a way to find moments of peace and quiet? Lord, Teach Me to Pray, the free Ignatian prayer series, will open your heart to His voice, to the peace you are seeking and the only love that fulfills the human heart, Jesus. God is calling you to true joy, knowing Jesus personally. Lord, Teach Me to Pray is free. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com, click on the red box, order the Lord Teach Me to Pray series now. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com.
Hey, you're listening to the Week's Worst of the Doctor is In with Dr. Ray Guarendi.
Thank you for joining me here, Dr. Ray Guarendi. The Doctor is In Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Some 4 to 500 EWTN affiliate radio stations, Sirius Channel 130, as well as a whole bunch of apps. Delightful privilege to be part of this network, co-production of the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network and Ave Maria Radio Communications. My producer man, Andrew Kruchek, who is call screaming also today. We have an anonymous caller from Georgia. A situation that's rather tragic. Hello, sir.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Here's my question.
You're welcome.
What do I tell my 12-year-old daughter? How much information do I give her without making my wife look bad? Here's the context. I am in a convalidated sacramental marriage. My wife has left our marriage, and she is in the process of buying a home with her new gentleman friend, and he brings children to the relationship as well, and I assume they'll engage in a civil marriage here at some point, probably sooner than later. But my daughter is a smart young lady, and she is starting to ask questions like, are we still a family? And she will ask me questions like, do you think Mom went to church today? And I know what she's getting at, the gravity of purposely missing Mass. And eventually she is going to, as she learns more about the sacrament, she's going to start asking some real questions, and she'll have a real understanding of the difference between a sacramental marriage and a civil marriage, and divorce and what's not a divorce. I have absolutely zero desire to make my wife look bad in any capacity, but I don't want to lie to my daughter, and I don't want to soften. I'm not going to run interference from my wife, nor do I want to soften decisions that my wife has made. And I'd love to know your thoughts on this. And by the way, I don't consider myself a victim, nor do I consider my wife a villain either. What has happened, and I cannot change it. But my daughter is certainly the victim in this, and I'd love to know what you think.
One thing I would think there, sir, is that you don't want to make your wife look bad, but she's already making herself look bad to your daughter. Is it safe to say your daughter is reasonably insightful, and she's recognizing what is with Mom? What is she doing? Is that safe to say?
I don't think it's gotten that far. Truth be told, my daughter has some level of excitement, and there are reasons for this, about her new life that is going to be coming upon her this month. But I think that's going to wear off at some point. And at some point, I think the chickens are really going to come home to roost. And I think she's going to draw conclusions that may not even be true. But I think she's going to realize, she's really going to know that something bad has happened here. And not to get too far ahead, but she's seeing the situation through the eyes of a 12-year-old. And I think when she's 16, 18, 20, she's going to see this situation through the eyes of a much more worldly person. And I think she's going to really have an understanding of what has happened. And I think it's going to be terrible when she does.
If your wife has left and she's living with some guy, How long has she been gone?
So we had this conversation in April where she didn't want to be married anymore. Our civil divorce was final on September 18th. And in November, this month, she is going to begin a life with someone else. I hope that answers your question.
Well, when you say that, the question for me is, when did she leave? How long has she been absent from the home?
Well, I am the one who was asked she to leave. She wanted the marital home, which I thought was fair. So,
is your daughter with you, or is she with her mother?
She splits time. She's probably with my wife 4 days a week and me 3 days a week. That's about how it works out.
I would suggest that you ask your daughter, how do you see what has gone on, honey? What is your understanding of all of this? Find out how she interprets it. That'll give you a starting point. If she says, I don't understand why Mom would do this, you can say, well, I'm not sure I completely understand either. All I know is what Mom told me, and she says she didn't want to be married anymore. This has nothing at all to do with you. It has to do with me. She doesn't want to be married to me anymore. Well, what's wrong with you, Dad? That's something, honey, you're going to have to ask Mom. I know what she's told me, but I don't want to put words in her mouth with you. So that's the first thing. You're going to give her principles, but not specifics. You're not going to get into nitty-gritty, ugly detail. I think you're going to find that your daughter's got a lot more feelings and thoughts about this than she has revealed.
I think that's probably true, and we've had some of these conversations already. You know, I think the idea of this whole concept of divorce, sacramental marriage, civil divorce, all that type of thing. It in her mind right now, she's not piecing it all together, but I think that's going to probably happen sooner than later. And
well, she'll ask you if she is. She'll say, I don't understand. Does the church say we're still married? And then you be straight. Yes, the church says we are still married. Well, how come we're not apart? Well, the law says you can split. But the church says that a marriage that is legitimate and valid is forever. Well, why would Mom do that? Again, honey, apparently she is not going to be obedient to that aspect of the church. You're going to have to say things that are going to be realistic, that can be taken as negative toward your wife, but there's no way around that.
Right.
You got to be straight. You don't have to say, well, you know what, because your mother's a witch and she's incredibly difficult to live with, and you're going to find that out as you get older. I'll doubt you'll have any kind of relationship with her when you're 20. You're not going to say anything like that.
No, absolutely not.
But at the same time, you're going to explain, this, honey, is what's happening. I suspect the questions will get more as your daughter sees, perhaps, guys come and go in your wife's life. Or just the new guy who stays with his kids. It's all complex, and those complexities are going to be raised with your daughter. And given that, and you're not saying this, but this is something that I see in these situations a lot. The one who says, I don't want to be married to you anymore. I don't love you. Discontent. I'm unhappy. If there is no pathology in the relationship, you're not a gambler, you're not an alcoholic, you're not into pornography, none of that stuff. She just doesn't like who you are. Then at that point, she may struggle more in life because she thinks she's going to be well and content being away from you, and much of the time that doesn't happen. And those will be questions that your daughter will raise because she'll say, why is Mom like that? Why does Mom do that? Why does Mom say this? And you're probably going to have to give some kind of straightforward answer without too rough.
You're listening to the least worst of The Doctor Is In with Dr. Ray Guarendi. So please, no calls at this time. Hit it, Jerry!
877-573-7825. 877-57-EQUAL. That's the number to call to get on to the program. We're at the bottom half already. Now, I went a long time there with our anonymous dad. There were so many directions to go on that. I saved that call. See, doggone it. I did it. Did you hear that? I went, It's just so easy for those kind of filler words to creep into your language no matter how hard you try to expunge them. I saved him for a look-back call because there are points I want to make about those kinds of situations where one says, I'm just discontent, I'm getting out of here. And there are kids. Patrick from Chicago, Illinois. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Dr. Ray. Thanks for taking my call.
Patrick, how are you listening in Chicago?
I'm not listening. Well, I'm listening right now because I called in, but usually I do the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Okay,
so you're not picking it up from a radio affiliate, because or even Sirius, right?
No.
Okay. How old's your son?
My son next month will turn 7.
7. Okay. Well, I'm glad. That's easy. That's very easy. What's he doing?
I hope so.
Sure. What's he doing?
He's it's in the temperament books that I've read. He's a choleric, which is what I am as well. He's very argumentative, and often now in the last couple of years becoming more and more defiant in how he approaches things he doesn't like. And that really ultimately goes against me for the most part, but now it's been becoming more and more. So the last couple of years, when he wrestles with his brothers, he'll actually scratch his brother, but provokes his sisters, and now becoming to a point where it's becoming like disrespectful towards my wife, or even this last couple of weeks towards his teachers. And then even when that disrespect to the teachers, he's been caught lying, in essence, finding out, because I marked him down, and then I say, well, what happened? And then he's trying to make up excuses. And so he just has tough self-control, and now I just worry about the respect and the honesty and it becoming a bad habit.
Are you buffaloed? Are you buffaloed by this little 7-year-old? In other words, we don't really know what to do with him.
I'm very... I have an iron will. And so I listened earlier when you were saying about high standards. It resonated a lot with me. So I have high standards about how we should treat people, how we should do things. But he is a similar temperament to me, so we're like two bulls barging at each other.
Well, you're making a good point here, Patrick, because I made a note of it, because it's a point I'm not going to get into too much this call. At a look back future, I will. When you say we're too much alike, and then you describe him as belligerent or argumentative or emotional meltdowns, if you say, well, that's me too, I do that too, with him.
Well, I don't do that, but I'm argumentative and I'm strong-willed.
Okay. If you're argumentative, you don't be argumentative with him. There is no argument here.
No.
You're dad.
Yeah.
If you're doing too much talking, too much reasoning, too much trying to calm him down, then in fact what you're doing unwillingly is making the problem worse. For example, just a quick question. Now, your son's name, can I ask his name?
Sure. Fitzgerald.
Oh, that's good, because if he's throwing fits, that's good. Fitzgerald.
Yeah, that's his name. We call him Fitz.
All right, Fitzgerald. Yeah, okay, I got it. I like it. So given that, if you say, what you did to your brother, go stand in the corner, please. Now, would he go stand in the corner and stay until you tell him he could leave?
The last couple of years, yes. The last few months, he's been saying no.
And what do you do?
Then I escalate it. And so then it's a threat to move, and if he doesn't move, I pick him up and put him in his room or something like that. It must happen.
Well, you can do that, but when you put him in his room, what's he do in his room? Does he trash it? Does he come out 16 times? What's he do?
He just cries and yells, and then I tell him he can't leave until he stops. He's quiet, and then I give him a period of time. And usually when he's there, he will then come back out calmer.
And then stick him back in the corner.
Okay.
He didn't serve his corner time. I don't know, Patrick, what your son's temperament's like. I don't know how much he is willing to challenge the rules and your authority and take the hit. I don't know that. I can tell you this after 45 years of dealing with parents. 90+% of the time, maybe more, maybe 95, when a parent says, my kid is defiant, my kid melts down, my kid challenges us, and there's nothing unusual going on in the environment, okay? There isn't anything that's hidden. He's not being abused by a neighbor. He's not getting bullied at school. There's nothing going on other than this interaction with the parent. Given that, it is, whether the parent realizes it or not, falling on them. That, in fact, they have not clearly enough communicated to this defiant youngster that you don't understand, son. If you do this, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to make this stick. So if you want to keep doing this, go ahead. But this is what I'm going to do. Now, what I would do is I would tell him this. I'd say, Fitzgerald, here's the situation. If I tell you to go to the corner, if I tell you to go sit on the couch, if I tell you to go lay on your bed, if I tell you to write sentences, if I tell you to put your head down at the dining room table, you better immediately do it, son. Because if you don't, I'm going to tell you immediately every privilege that you have for the rest of the day will be gone. Everything. That means your favorite food. That means when there's chicken and apple pie, you ain't getting that. You're getting the green beans and the toast and milk. Patrick has to realize that Dad is not going to butt heads with him. Dad is clearly in charge here. One of the things I learned, I wrote a book called Taught by 10 about what I learned as a father from my kids. My children, I've mentioned many times in this program, are all adopted. And some of them have had just absolutely wretched histories. Wretched. So they're a couple of them are much more prone to defiance, nastiness, sneakiness, lying, etc. My wife had absolutely minimal defiance from those kids. How could that be? Because she was very clear that I'm going to do this, and you're not going to like what'll happen if you defy it. And they learned that very young. Patrick, I have a book that might help you a lot. It's called Discipline That Lasts a Lifetime. Most common discipline questions I get asked from parents, and it will help you with your authority, your follow-through, and to get one-time obedience. I wish I could give you a lot more, but the book would.
You're listening to the least worst of The Doctor Is In with Dr. Ray Guarendi. So please, no calls at this time.
I got to say a little bit more about that, but let me give you the number again, 877-57-EQUAL. When a parent says, this kid at age 7, 10, 12, is defiant, argumentative, deceptive, disrespectful, challenging, etc. And he also mentioned there are problems at school, which typically doesn't happen. More often than not, the problems are at home. I would say maybe a small percentage of the time they're both home and school. More often they are problems at home and not at school. What is it? What's going on? One of the things is perception. A child reads a parent. A child decides if the parent means what she says, he says, and then generally responds accordingly. From many, many decades, not many, many, from decades, many, many years of seeing parents and kids in these situations, almost always, as we talk and we explore how the discipline scenario unfolds, there are things the parent can do that would make it better. They think, no, I just got a kid that's tough. I just got a kid like this, and everything we try doesn't work. This kid challenges us every step of the way. I'm a firm parent. I have high standards. It is one thing to have high standards. Probably every parent who listens to this program has high standards. It's quite another to know how to calmly, confidently, and with strength and resolve enforce those standards. One of the things, for example, that my wife did very early on, if you don't go to the corner or go to your room or take your punishment, all kinds of things are going to happen to you. You're going to lose all kinds of privileges. And she didn't yell. She didn't scream. She just looked at them like, don't do that. Don't do that. And she looked so resolute that they read her and they thought, Now, did my kids misbehave? Of course they did. Of course they did. Defiance. There's the difference. I'm not anywhere near as concerned about a kid who misbehaves as I am about one who's defiant. Defiant is a direct challenge to your authority. It says, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to follow your rules. And any time that you attempt to enforce some kind of standard with me, leave my brother alone, don't scream at my mother, don't kick my blocks all over the place and refuse to pick them up. Anytime you attempt to enforce a standard, you can't know how I'm going to react. I could melt down. You try to discipline me, this will turn into an hour-and-a-half brawl. And once that tone is set in place, now it becomes the template for the interaction. My wife is a better disciplinarian than I am. She notices more. She follows through, probably. I tend to be a little more psychology squishy, even though it's important that I know that I enforce it. And she knew I was the enforcer. Don't mess with Dad. But when she was at home with 10 kids between the ages of 14 and 2, at one point all under 12, she knew she had to have unquestioned authority or all hell would break loose in our house. And she enforced it. And the kids got the message. See, that's what convinces me that most kids will get the message. My children, some of whom had womb environments that you wouldn't want any of your kids to have. So given that, it predisposed some of them to developmental issues that would be difficult. But defiance was not one of them. Sneakiness? Yes. Okay. Sneaky? Yeah, we got a lot of that. Sneaky's hard to patrol. But defiance. In your face. I'm not doing it. And Patrick said, well, I got to pick him up and take him to his room. No, you don't. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know why? Because he's torquing his body all the way up there. Now, Dad can do it because he's stronger now, but at some point, Mom can't do it. So at some point, this little guy's got to realize, no. When I tell you to go to the corner, and I'm only going to say it once, if you refuse, watch the repercussions over the next several hours or days. I should get into this more later. I think it has a lot to do with the overall radical shift in parenthood the last 30, 40, 50 years. In terms of parents were much more comfortable asserting authority, which meant spanking. For most parents, that meant spanking. And because we've all become much more psychologically enlightened, yeah, it's good to understand some of those principles, but at the same time, if that erodes your own parenting, loving authority, then it can get really ugly at home. And I can't tell you how many parents don't enjoy their kids because of the discipline issues. I can't tell you how many parents have said, I wanted to have 5 kids. I stopped the 2 because I can't handle the 2 I have. That's sad. It shouldn't be that way. Why was it? 100 years ago, I think it's safe to say, the parents had much, much, much less struggle with discipline. A lot of cultural reasons for that. But I got to take a break. Talk to you when I get back. Dr. Ray.
The Holy Spirit Catholic School Open House is Wednesday, April 22nd from 4 to 5:30 p.m. at their school in Brighton, just off US 23 in Green Oak Township. Holy Spirit School offers Catholic formation in a faithful family community. Students in grades kindergarten through 8 thrive in small classes taught by exceptional, faith-filled teachers. Visit HolySpiritSchoolBrighton.org. That's HolySpiritSchoolBrighton.org.
Announcing again our popular St. Paul Mediterranean cruise and pilgrimage, visiting over 10 biblical sites. You'll never read the New Testament the same again after exploring Athens, Ephesus, Corinth, Thessalonica, Philippi, Crete, and the Greek Isles, and much more. Mass at Mary's house. Our luxurious celebrity cruise liner awaits you.
To learn more about your Ave Maria Radio trip, find the Ave Maria Radio Travel tab at AveMariaRadio.net. In 2022, a brave young woman from Naperville named Rima Geraitis traveled to Ukraine to deliver medical supplies. She decided to stay as a combat medic on the front lines. Join Rima Friday, April 24th at the St. Francis Parish in Ann Arbor for a special fundraising dinner with Ukrainian folk music, dancing, and delicious food. All to buy life-saving medical supplies for Ukraine. Buy tickets or donate at a2forukraine.com. That's A2, Ukraine.com. Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically own shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866-AVE-MARIA or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
You are listening to a least worst of. The Doctor is in. We have no best of. You think God could be calling you to religious life? You want to contact a religious order that's faithful to the magisterium, teaching office of our church, or your diocesan vocation office? Want some information on priesthood, religious life? Go to EWTN.com/religious life today to get some info. And I do want to say that if any of you follow up on this listening, or any of your kids follow up on this listening because they heard it here on The Doctor Is In, I do get a percentage credit. If they follow through, ordained, enter a religious order, I get a percentage credit of all the holy things they do. Yeah, look it up. It's like Amway. Also, I want to congratulate our EWTN radio partner, and it's a big one, and I've had such a wonderful time with them over the years. Real Presence Radio, 27 stations serving North, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Wyoming, 21 years. Real Presence, what a great group. Congratulations to Lynn Devitt and the whole team there at Real Presence. Lynn was wonderful when we went up there and we taped Living Right with Dr. Ray. Had a great bunch of folks. I spent some time up there. It was great. I've done many of their support banquets. And by the way, interestingly enough, it was, I believe, March of 2020 that I went up and did one of their banquets. And probably they have huge turnouts. I mean, they had like 800 people at this. And I was not feeling good at all. Just under some kind of weather. It was the only time that my voice gave out. I've been very fortunate over the years. I've never, ever had my voice give out on radio or TV or speaking. Well, it was really shaky then. Shook hands with a boatload of people. Went home. Couldn't shake it. My daughter, who's a nurse, took me to the local emergency room. She said, "Dad, I've never seen you this sick." I said, "Well, let's kind of see what's going on." And they said, "You got some kind of upper respiratory infection. We don't really know what it is. We can tell you it's not the flu." Well, it was probably COVID. I didn't know it. So I infected, I think, all of northeastern Dakotas. Well, I don't think I did, but all of that, that's probably when it was. And then everything shut down very shortly after that. It was the last presentation I did. Let's go to Angela from Ohio. She's got kind of a unique scenario here. Hello, Angela.
Hey, Dr. Ray. How are you doing? You're always contagious, by the way. We love you. And
some might say infectious. Some might say infectious. Virulent is another word.
Are you going to do another a shrink and two priests show again soon? That was incredible.
Which one was that? Oh, yes. You were there, huh?
You brought that house down. Oh, my God. You... We love you.
Those people don't get out much.
Oh my gosh! We're waiting for the next one. Well, we have a problem. My ex-husband's side. Well, he's dead now. There have been 6 suicides.
What?
6 suicides from my.
Oh my!
My husband's brother's kids, and they only have 2 cousins left. My kids are shell-shocked. There was another one 2 days ago, gunshot wound, and it's usually drugs or gunshot. And my kids have been raised very well. They have really good jobs. They're very stable. But last night when I was talking to them, it was as if they were in a state of shock. I didn't know what to say or do. You know, they're watching their cousins die. Various ways.
Are these all young adults who do this?
Yeah, in their 20s and 30s. Gunshots to the stomach, the head, drug overdoses, and their parents are all comfortable. But they didn't have a lot of religion with the kids. They didn't have a lot of stability. The parents were a little on the wild side. And I don't know what to say to my kids. They're a little bit, they're like in left field. I don't know.
What are they saying to you about this?
Well, last night they called me and said, another cousin is dead. We found her with a gunshot to her head, and it's just, I really didn't know what to say. They were just like, they were like shocked. I can't even express the emotion. It was just so empty, because I think they're afraid. They've seen so much death from their cousins that maybe, they're afraid of themselves, but they're very stable. They work hard. They're in the medical field, and one is in avionics. They did lose their brother to cancer. But the other 6 cousins were gunshot wounds, drug over, in the last, I'd say 5 years.
Ask them what they think of this. How are they understanding it? Are they saying, "Where is God?" Are they saying, "How could someone be so miserable to end their life?" Are they saying, "Is this related to their turbulent lifestyles?" How are they interpreting all this?
When they were saying the parents were not there, they were not emotionally there. They were not. They were involved in their own lives. They did a lot of cheating and drugs, and they were. And they had very good jobs in the medical field and construction, and they had really nice homes. They still do, but the kids are gone. They're dead, and I think it's really bothering my kids.
I'd want to know. I'd want to know how the kids look at this. I'd want to know what they're thinking. I'd want to know, after all of this, would they be saying, "What's life all about, Alfie?" I want to know that. Or you could point out to them that the studies have shown that the farther you get from God, the farther you get from a faith-filled life, the more likely you are to get discontent, and suicide rises.
Wow.
So if in fact, and you can point that out to them, if in fact they're still living a faith-filled life and they're seeking our Lord, the chances of them doing something like this are much reduced. But whatever it was that was empty in these kids' lives, I would also point out to them this. I would say the church is wonderful in her teaching about suicide. The church says we don't know how God is going to judge this. This is not our judgment. We don't automatically say, therefore they killed themselves, they took a life, they are in big trouble in hell. No, you can't say that. The church would say only God knows the factors involved in all this. Only God knows what to be merciful about. Only God knows how, in the end, they may have actually had a few seconds to regret what they did. That's why the church offers funeral masses. Because she says, this is God's call, we pray for mercy, and we cannot say that these people are losing their soul because of this. All right. Angela, thank you, dear. What a tragedy. This is Dr. Ray. Thank you for joining me. Walk with God.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.